Hey, world, what up? Hey, LeBron James is very strategic. He knows how to plant seeds in people's heads, and he keeps this going on and on and on. You got to notice this, guys. LeBron James is trying to proclaim himself as the GOAT, not only as of right now, but planting seeds for in the future as well. So if LeBron James were to accomplish more accolades, championships, regular season MVPs, and yada yada yada, you'd be like Nick Wright, and your standard for him as a GOAT would be now. And any other accomplishment would break that standard and would go into higher elevation era for more rewards. So right now, Shannon Sharp, Nick Wright are on that height. They're on that peak, and they're not looking down, especially after winning the 2020 NBA championship. Because previously from that, those two cats stated LeBron was the GOAT. This gave him more ammunition when LeBron won the 2020 NBA championship to proclaim LeBron James even more as the GOAT over Michael Jordan. And LeBron, around a year ago or so, on one of his interviews and podcasts he stated after the 2016 finals, he proclaimed and he saw himself as the NBA greatest player of all time. The quote unquote, that made me the greatest player of all time right there, doing that for Cleveland. Coming back 3-1 against the 73-9 Golden State Warriors. LeBron's been planting these seeds also, as well as making the I Promise School in association with Nike, and as well as him trying to quote unquote fight social injustice by all of these just pretty much just being outspoken. And a lot of two-dimensional figures and cats, they were pretty much in that propaganda, following that alongside. I'm not about that. I already stated LeBron James right now, he's pretty much in the know. If he doesn't win 6 NBA championships, he can pretty much use the GOAT argument on value when it comes to his championships, let alone off the court ideals. Now, I've already stated I expect the NBA and congruence with everything in the background with LeBron to where he will win 6 NBA championships all time. But that's another video for another day. This topic, as of right now, LeBron James is still using his same antics and tactics, pretty much stating he won the 2 hardest NBA championships in league history. As a number 1, that is not the case. The 2020 NBA championship, if we're just talking about the finals, that was not one of the hardest championships of all time. I'm pretty much expecting LeBron and this whole sentence and this whole claim that he's pretty much brought forth, pretty much the whole playoff series. And I understand you're in the bubble, you're in a pandemic, you do have a mental burden. You're staying in a bubble for around 2 to 3 months as it is. You're away from your family. You're in a new situation. It has to be adaptable. You're not in the right mindset, and there's a lot of chaos and anarchy within the world. That's one of the cases. Another, as well as LeBron James and the crew had to face a tough Western Conference and going into deeper to finish the championship. The LA Lakers were not favorites by most NBA TV pundits, as it was. I always stated the Lakers would win the championship due to storyline background, and let alone it was LeBron James's time if you're looking into it. If there's a bubble championship and when it comes to value and storyline, they will give it to LeBron James. This is his glorified years when it comes down to him. Now, we'll jump into here more onto first things first. You do have Mr. Nick Wright, buddy, NBA fanboy of LeBron James, so expect more of a bias, and that's what I'm expecting as well. Chris Broussard kind of keeps it a little more neutral ground, and I doubt they'll ever put the spotlight on Brandon. But let's jump into here. I'll get more of my take on these and jump in.
Chris Broussard is back with us again. I mean, is Broussard, is he right? Is LeBron James right?
LeBron James is not right. And listen, LeBron James doesn't even have to believe that sentence. He just has to keep on planting seeds to pretty much two-dimensional fanboys or everyone out there in the world. And around 85% of people will eat this up and they will believe it. Now, that's not the case for me. If we're talking about not one of them, but the few of the hardest championships of all time, a couple that come to mind, the 2011 Dallas Mavericks. They had one of the hardest playoff runs. They were a 3rd seed, and most people had them losing to the first round against the Portland Trailblazers with LaMarcus Aldridge, Brandon Roy, Marcus Camby, Gerald Wallace, and the crew. That Dallas Mavericks team was They were an underrated team. They were pretty much the young generation of the 2015 Golden State Warriors. Not as electric as to be, but more traditional. And that Dallas Mavericks team was very low key, under the radar. The Mavericks, pretty much around the 2010s or the high 2000s, they would pretty much lose in the first round or second round. They never had that burst to get into the finals or win the championship. Last time was 2006. In 2007, they were number one seed. Besides from that, they never reached that ground ever again. They had experiments with Devin Harris, then Jason Kidd, but they were still kind of that mediocrity. The 2011 Mavericks were still a formidable team. They were not expected by anybody to win the championship in the beginning of the season. That Mavericks team went against the Portland Trailblazers the first round, 1-6. They went against the back-to-back champions of Kobe Bryant and the crew of the LA Lakers. Not only did the Mavericks win whenever they were on the road, not being home court favorites, but they swept Kobe Bryant. A lot of Kobe fans got to realize that Kobe Bryant is not the GOAT. Kobe Bryant got swept by Dirk Nowitzki and the crew. That was an embarrassment to the Lakers. Not only from that, the Dallas Mavericks took down the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, they were young. This was around Kevin Durant's third season in the NBA, third or fourth, somewhere in that mix. But Kevin Durant was top 3 in MVP voting. He was a top 3 player in the league by then. Dirk Nowitzki and the crew took that team down, and that Oklahoma City Thunder was a top 5 team in the NBA. They were elite. And then the Dallas Mavericks, most importantly, they took down the Miami Heat Big Three of LeBron, D. Wade, and Chris Bosh. And Dwayne Wade was in his prime. When Dwayne Wade was with that Big Three for those 4 years of in the finals with LeBron, this was the only season to where Dwayne Wade was truly in his prime. Whenever it came to 22 to 2014, Dwayne Wade was at the end to out of his prime. In 2011, Dwayne Wade was a superstar. In 2012, he was not a superstar anymore. He was just a star player. Let's get that fact right. Let's just get that down with. D-Wade was a superstar. LeBron James as well. Chris Bosh was still up there as well as a top 10 to 15 player in the league. The Dallas Mavericks were not favored at all whatsoever to win that championship. The Miami Heat were favored to win that championship in 5 games. The Mavericks in Dallas, they shocked the world. Dirk shocked the world. And that puts me number 1 as the number 1 greatest championship of all time. We always got to look now next to the 95 Houston Rockets with Hakeem, the Dream Olajuwon, Kenny Smith, Sam Cassell, Drexler, and the crew. They were a 6 seed. They took down Utah. They took down Phoenix. They took down the number 1 seed, Orlando Magic, with Shaq and Penny in the NBA Finals in a dominant fashion of sweeping them. The Rockets did not have home court that series. Hakeem, they took down and they won back-to-back championships. They were a 6 seed. I'll jump into a couple more teams as well, but I was just introducing those two as for right now.
First of all, I got to give LeBron props. This was a clever, subtle way of saying, I'm the GOAT.
Bingo.
Without saying I'm the GOAT, as he did 4 years ago. So I'll give him props for that. But no, he's not right. Look, and I get the bubble situation. I think it was really hard on LeBron. We know how much of a family man he is. He said he did.
The 2020 championship for the Lakers in the bubble, that's memorable. If you look in the history in the NBA, they're going to be pointing to 2020 about there was a pandemic. They had to play in a bubble, hard mentally, yada, yada, yada. That's going to elevate LeBron James's case if he wants to become more of a GOAT or more of the top player of the NBA of his accolades.
See his kids till he got out of the bubble. That is rough. We know he's a man of routine, as he said on the podcast. That's broken in the bubble. I get it. But I can also point to things that would have made it easier. No travel, no distractions, no hostile crowds to deal with on the road. And as a 35-year-old with 16 to 17 years of experience or wear and tear, really, he got a 4-month break in the season before the playoffs started. So that helped his body. And then the opponent that they faced. I don't blame the Lakers for it, but they faced arguably the worst team to ever reach the NBA Finals, and that was before the Miami Heat lost two of their.
No, I don't want to say that. The Miami Heat did have a good chance. Well, not on my side. I expect the Lakers to win that more based on. I mean, come on. You got LeBron in the finals. He's not going to lose another finals. That's number one. Number two, he's not going to lose to a Jimmy Butler-led team. He's not going to lose to Pat Riley and the Heat. And that's based on storyline, legacy, career, yada, yada, yada. But if we're just talking about a two-dimensional perspective of looking objectively, the Lakers, and I had them winning that series in 6 games. The Heat were a good matchup for the LA Lakers at full strength being healthy. Now, they did not have bigs, and the Lakers had the bigs to take down the Heat. That was the advantage for LA. Besides from that, the Miami Heat still had some close games that the Lakers closed out.
3 best players, Goran Dragic, who missed 4 of the 6 finals games, and Bam Adebayo, who missed 2 of the 6 finals games. So there's no way this was the hardest finals to win, or one of them. Secondly, Golden State.
Real quickly for 2020. For LeBron James in his career, the first and second round against the Portland Trailblazers and the Houston Rockets, those were 2 of the greatest matchups and hardest matchups for LeBron James' career in the first round and in the second round. Again, LeBron's always been in the East. This is the first time in the West he's been in the playoffs. Those Portland Trailblazers, even though they squeaked out an 8 seed, they lost Nurkic and their bigs and Collins during the regular season. That Portland Trailblazers team should have been a 4th or 5th seed in the NBA. That was one of the best offenses we've seen out there, and an MVP caliber type player in Damian Lillard. There was questions to where if the Lakers could even win that first round series due to Charles Barkley, some ESPN pundits, especially after the Blazers won Game 1. There were some people that had the Blazers winning and beating the LA Lakers. Same thing with round 2 with the Rockets. Some TV pundits and ESPN favored the Rockets to win that series due to their offense. A lot of people did not believe in the LA Lakers. A lot did not. And since the Lakers won the championship, they're flipping the script, stating it was obvious they had LeBron and AD, 2 of the top 8 players in the league. That's how they usually play these tactics in these games. A lot of these people had the Clippers winning the championship. That was not the case. This was a hard championship for the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, it wasn't one of the hardest all time on top of that list. But especially those first 2 rounds, that was very tough for the Lakers. Even though they pulled things together and gentlemen sweep winning 4 in a row, the first and second round, it was still a tough matchup for both. The hardest in LeBron James' whole career in the first and second round. But the Lakers put things together.
I want to say it's the greatest comeback in NBA Finals history. Absolutely. If you want to say it's one of the most epic finals, absolutely. But I can't give you credit for being down 3-1. That Golden State team that won 73 games was not unbeatable, obviously, but they were.
I'm going to stop you there, Mr. Chris Broussard. Steph Curry in 2016 was on quote-unquote God mode. Steph Curry had the greatest MVP regular season, debatably, of all time. You can put Michael Jordan up there in the mix, but Steph Curry was number 1 all time. I've never seen anyone more unstoppable. You could not stop Steph Curry in the regular season. They would be down by 20. The Warriors, in a blink of an eye, will come back and win those games by force. When they would play at home in the Oracle, the Warriors had the atmosphere, the presence. They would destroy opponents. And these players, they would have stress playing against the Warriors and Steph Curry. Coaches would have stress. If you were an NBA fan watching TV, watching these games, Steph Curry and the Warriors put stress on you as a fan. I've never seen any other player do that ever. LeBron would never put stress on other players, knowing that they will lose or how to stop this person. And I've stated, and a lot of these cats can go kind of back and forth when it comes to this, I do believe that there is some scripting in the NBA. There is a propaganda. There is a narrative. There is a script. When the Cavaliers were down 3-1, it was in the know that Steph Curry had to put the gas off the pedal and put the brakes. And we've seen the Warriors ever since. They dropped down around 45 to 50% of what they usually did. Steph Curry's body language was very sluggish, non-caring for those last remaining closeout games. Game 7, throwing behind the back pass to Klay Thompson out of bounds when there's a couple minutes left in Game 7. Steph Curry scoring around 16 points in Game 7. It was in the know. You got to watch those games 5, 6, and 7 again. But trying to get back on track, the Cleveland Cavaliers and LeBron James winning 2016 was one of the hardest championships of all time. Even though the Cavaliers were favored in 2016 before the season to win the championship, they were favored due to storyline. They were favored because LeBron James was back in Cleveland and he had to win the championship. It's more of a storyline narrative. Now, if you're looking objectively, the Warriors were favored by heavily to win that championship. They became 73-9. They started the season 24-0. Those Warriors were unbeatable. Now, when LeBron James faced them in the finals, the Cleveland Cavaliers still had a pretty good matchup because you got LeBron, Kyrie, and you still got some length, the defensive guns finally being healthy. But the Warriors were still favorites to win that championship. And they were 73-9. And for LeBron James to beat a 70-win team in the finals, down 3-1, that is a top 3 finals hardest championship of all time.
Down 3-1 in the Western Conference Finals to Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City choked. That's the only reason Golden State even got.
Yeah, but the thing when it came to it, even though the Thunder were up 3-1, well, at least I knew this, that the Warriors could easily come back and win that series by force. And that's exactly what the Golden State Warriors did. They should have never been down 3-1 to begin with against the Oklahoma City Thunder. But they were. But you know what? They came back by force and they won that series.
To those finals. So that's being down 3-1 to that team, I can't give you credit for that, especially when if you look on paper, I got LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Love, and I got Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green. I kind of like this trio over here with LeBron, the best player in the world. So the talent was very close.
No, sir. In 2016, and a lot of LeBron fans are going to get mad at this, in the 2016 regular season, Steph Curry was the greatest player in the world. He overlapped LeBron James. And I'm a cat who states, I don't like switching the best player in the world very quickly, and I don't do that. LeBron James has been the best player in the world ever since pretty much of around 2011, in that range. Whenever Kobe passed the torch, LeBron from 2011 has been the best player in the world until that time in 2016. Now, Steph Curry was the best player in the world for that one season, but since LeBron won that championship, it went back to LeBron James to reclaiming the throne, and LeBron ever since has still been the NBA best player in the world since 2021. But in 2016, Steph Curry was the greatest player in the world. He went back-to-back regular season MVPs, unanimous. He had a 73-9 record. He embarrassed LeBron in his legacy until LeBron James finally came back and won that championship. But Steph Curry was on GOD mode. He could not be stopped whatsoever. Now, the NBA finally got it in the making to where they had to get back on LeBron James. So, I mean, it is what it is when it came to it. If you're looking at those three players together, I would take Steph Curry and Klay Thompson over LeBron James and Kyrie Irving. Easy. I would take those two easy. Kevin Love and Draymond Green are irrelevant when it comes to it. Kevin Love has always been a glorified Ryan Anderson 2.0. He never fit with the Cleveland Cavaliers. He was a beast whenever he was with Minnesota because he was 20 pounds heavier. He was stockier. He would take you in the post. He would take you from 3. Now, since he lost 20 pounds, he's been only taken as a 3-point shooter. He would not take it inside. Even inside, he could not bully you down there. He could not whatsoever. LeBron James would even get Kevin Love going in games and forcing the ball to Kevin Love, and Kevin Love could not make anything work. Kevin Love averaged 16 points in the finals for a reason. And I believe in a couple other finals, Kevin Love even averaged even less than that. He was never reliable. Draymond Green, Klay, and Steph fit in a system. Kyrie, Kevin Love, and LeBron tried to fit in the LeBron James system. It did not work. It was forced. And plus, Kevin Love was not a third guy. It was a dynamic duo of winning that 2016 championship. It was not a big three.
You didn't need to be down 3-1. So it was a great comeback, but I can't say it was definitively the greatest finals win or hardest finals win in history.
Okay, so Nick, the question is this. Does this matter? Does this matter at all? Do you give credence to how hard the level of difficulty of your championship should matter in the GOAT debate? Because, Broussard, you did a good job mentioning it. After they beat the Warriors, he did the little conversation, and he was like, you know what? That right there, that made me...
Well, real quickly, when we're talking about MJ and LeBron, you still got to put that in the equation that LeBron James beat a 73-9 team. He beat the best player in the world in Steph Curry. He came down from 3-1, shows his mental toughness, and he won on the road for a Game 7 championship win. So that's going to be one of LeBron James's best accomplishments all time. For 2020, he can bring down the case. He played in the bubble, alternative location, a pandemic, all this other stuff going on. He was not even the favorites for the Lakers. So that's still a great accomplishment for LeBron James. Now, I mean, the 2020 Lakers winning that championship was not one of the hardest, but it was still a tough championship to win. Not during the conference finals and NBA finals, but kind of the whole max of things, if anything.
The greatest of all time. And everybody got early cuts of The Last Dance, and it was the Jordan, like, what? Ah! So do you think that level of difficulty matters?
Of course it matters. And I'm going to put the bubble in a bubble. LeBron says if you weren't there, you don't get it. I wasn't there. I don't get it. I agree with Broussard as far as like the opponent in the finals. It was a atypically weak opponent in the finals. So set that one aside. And you guys are trying to denigrate the 3-1 comeback. Okay, let's pretend it wasn't a 3-1 comeback. I'll clean it up for LeBron. I beat the best team to ever be beaten in a finals. It's true. And how'd we beat them? Well, I went 41-16-7. Then I went 41-8-11. Then I went 29-11-11 with the best defensive player in the history of the league and the free throw to ice the game. So whether it was 3-1, 1-3, 2-2, 0-4, don't matter. The best team to ever be beaten in a finals, I beat them. But here's what he's really saying, Broussard, and this is undeniable. LeBron's got 3 rings where in the finals, he beat a team that was far better than any team Jordan ever beat. Best team Jordan ever beat in the finals is 96 Sonics. It's a really, really, really good team. Don't hold a candle to the Thunder with KD, Russ, and Harden. Don't hold a candle to the 4 Hall of Famer San Antonio Spurs. And certainly don't hold a candle to a team that evidently was just ripe for the picking, the 73-9 Warriors with a unanimous league MVP as the defending champions. And if we want to take it further, Broussard, if you look at the 16 LeBron and MJ finals appearances, and we ranked all of the opponents, the 7 hardest belong to LeBron James. That's the point he's making, and he's right about it. So 3-1, not 3-1, bubble, no bubble, throw that title out. He didn't need it. He was already the GOAT. But that is, I think even Chris Broussard, who when he's not a Clippers fan is a Michael Jordan fan, would agree with that. The hardest finals opponents are all on LeBron's side of the ledger.
All right, the Mega Millions jackpot is climbing. There was no winner on Friday night, so right now the jackpot...
Another 2 teams I'm going to throw out there for one of the hardest, the 98 Bulls and the 2004 Detroit Pistons. Especially that Pistons team who went against the 2004 Lakers with Shaq, Kobe, Karl Malone. Well, Karl Malone was injured. Gary Payton and Phil Jackson. That Lakers team, even though internally with Kobe and Shaq they had beef, they still won 3 championships, and they still were the greater team when it came to it. The Pistons most likely should have lost that series in 4 to 5 games, but they came together. They were an offensive unit. Their chemistry was on 100. They had a game plan. They had grit, hustle, defense. They knew how to take down Kobe. Kobe Bryant wanted to be a Finals MVP. He wanted to get Shaq out of town, and they pretty much got on the psyche, mentalness of Kobe Bryant. They would pretty much go in. They would double Kobe, leave Shaq open. And Kobe Bryant was not feeding Shaq. Kobe only averaged around 17 points that series. Locked down by Tayshaun Prince. That 2004 Detroit Pistons did not have a superstar on their team. They did not have a super team. That 2004 Pistons team was organic and it was good for the NBA. They're one of the top hardest teams to win that within the 2 decades and within the whole modern age.
I would not agree with that. And I'm also a LeBron James fan, but that is just patently false. Just because the
When I think about the 2 greatest NBA championships of all time, I think of the 2011 Dallas Mavericks and then the 2016 Cleveland Cavaliers winning against the Warriors. Those are the top 2 I think of.
Tiers committee says so doesn't make it true.
And then the Pistons and the Rockets kind of go down from there, but first things that come up to my head.
Just totally, that young Oklahoma City team where Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden were babies?
Nah. Listen, I'm going to stop you there, Chris Broussard. That 2012 Oklahoma City Thunder were neck to neck with the 2012 Miami Heat. The Miami Heat were not a super team in 2012 to 2014. Now, they were heavy favorites to win the championship in any series. Going into each season, they were favorites to win the championship because you got a quote-unquote big 3. The 2011 Miami Heat were a super team, max from the whole NBA. In 2012, Dwayne Wade fell off by a huge portion. Now, it's not a bad thing. Listen, Dwayne Wade was a superstar in 2011. He was a top 5 player in the league. In 2012, Dwayne Wade was pretty much a top 10, top 15 player. I'll say top 10. But he was not a superstar anymore. He was a star player. That 2012 Oklahoma City Thunder, that was Kevin Durant's 4th or 5th season in the league. He was the 2nd greatest player in the league. And pretty much him and Russ and James Harden were a young, and Serge Ibaka, let me include him, were a young but promising future team. That 2012 OKC Thunder had home court advantage. They kind of resembled around a 2015 Golden State Warriors, but they didn't have the IQ and the shooting for it. That 2012 OKC Thunder had home court advantage in the NBA Finals, and they were favored by kind of 50-50 to win that championship. They had the momentum. The Miami Heat never had that momentum. So I do not want to hear that whatsoever. That was a good matchup against the Miami Heat. That was a legitimate team to face in the finals.
That team was better than any
in the conference
opponent
finals
Jordan
the last
beat in
year.
the finals?
Yes.
Are you serious?
Yes.
No,
Yes.
there's no
Yes,
way.
I am serious.
You are overlooking
Okay.
the Utah Jazz, who beat great
No, I'm not.
teams in
2
the
Hall of
West to get to
2 Hall
the
of Famers.
finals. That's not how you measure a team. You don't just say, they got this many Hall of Famers. They got that many Hall of Famers.
All right, how about wins?
How did they
How about
work
wins?
together?
They had
How did the
64
chemistry
wins.
come together?
Those Jazz teams,
Wins can
64
depend
wins. That's
on
good.
the weakness of the league at that time. I mean, seriously, look, in San Antonio, Tim Duncan was well past his prime.
He
when
was
the Miami
first team
Heat
All-NBA.
beat San Antonio
Wrong.
in the finals.
Wrong. Look it up.
He was
Wrong.
well
He was
past
first
his prime
team
at that point.
He's first.
Well, they're both right. Tim Duncan was a center in the later stages of his career. He was first team All-NBA in 2013, alongside with KD, LeBron James, I believe Chris Paul, and another player too, or another player. But Tim Duncan, he was past his prime. Tim Duncan in 2007, in the early stages, he was in his prime. But into 2013, ever since he went down to a center position, he was still one of the great players in the NBA. He was not a star player. He was pretty much that formidable. He kind of reminded me more of that 2011 Dirk Nowitzki, but a little less than that. Tim Duncan pretty much knew his role as playing a center, giving you pretty much around 15 to 20 points a night, maybe even less, but more of a defensive presence. Tim Duncan was first team All-NBA in 2013, but that San Antonio's first team, the Miami Heat should have won that series in 6 games. Now, the Spurs had a great game plan, they had the high IQ, and they really got LeBron James and exposed him and Dwayne Wade. It took a couple hiccups, and the Miami Heat took advantages of opportunities to finally close them out. But that was a close series to where the Miami Heat got lucky on a few plays. Because pretty much when you're looking at IQ, you're looking at a foundation of chemistry against a young team with talent. And it pretty much kind of went 50-50, and it was a toss-up from there. And that's what we saw. The Heat won Game 7 pretty much around 4 to 7 points when it came to it. But for LeBron James, he should have won 2013 against the Spurs in a greater fashion, but I'll let that slide. He won the championship. He clutched it out in Game 7. It is what it is.
Team All-NBA.
And Kawhi Leonard
He's the top
was a
5 player in
babe.
the league.
Stop it.
Correct.
Stop.
Oh, I agree. Kawhi wasn't that good.
Hey,
I agree.
now
That's a good take. I agree. Kawhi was not that good. All right, by the way.
Exactly. Kawhi Leonard was not an all-star player. We saw him as a player with potential to be a future all-star in the league, and we left it at that. That was it.
Because America demands it. Broussard,
of,
I've got something for you. You go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
Nick, one of the finals that I would say was one of the hardest, if you want to go that route, it was also against LeBron. And that was the 2011 Dallas Mavericks with one great player in his prime, Dirk Nowitzki, beating...
Bingo. That was the greatest championship run of all time. Again, I already listed the first 3 rounds, but to go against that Miami Heat team with quote-unquote the second greatest player of all time with LeBron James. Well, I mean, not at that time, but overall standings. Going against LeBron James, that big 3, a star-studded super team. The Dallas Mavericks used a formula, a foundation, and they saved NBA basketball. Kudos to Dirk Nowitzki. That was the greatest championship run of all time.
3 of the best players in the world.
That is
3
correct.
future Hall of Famers. That, I mean, so
Broussard, I got
we
something
can look
for
at
you.
this many ways,
I got something
brother.
for you.
But how do you...
Hold on, Broussard. I got something for you. The hardest championships ever. Let's show them. We got a top 3. Bronze medalist. The 2011 Mavs. Do you know what the 2011 Mavs had to do? In round 2, they beat the back-to-back champion Lakers. Get out of here. Round 3, they beat Oklahoma City, who evidently KD, Russ, and Harden weren't any good in 2012, so they must not have been good in 2011. I thought they were pretty awesome. Round 3, they beat LeBron, Wade, and Bosh. What's the silver medalist for the hardest championship? I think Broussard covered this one. He was fresh out of college. 1970 New York Knicks. First playoff series, they beat Earl the Pearl Monroe and Wes Unseld. Second playoff series, they beat Kareem, at the time Lou Alcindor. And in the finals, they beat Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, and Wilt Chamberlain. And the hardest championship ever won, on the road the whole time, the 1995 Houston Rockets.
Hey, good for you for showing some love for the Rockets. The 95 Rockets, the 6th seed. Kudos.
You are on the road in Utah in a Game 5.
Point this out. That 1970 Knicks team. Look, remember, half of the best players in the world were playing in the ABA at that time. So I can't give them the hardest champ.
Hey, I'm pretty much going to go off and I'm going to end it off here. Listen. The hardest championships of all time, the 2011 Dallas Mavericks, the 95 Rockets, the 2016 Cleveland Cavaliers, only in the finals on that part. The 2004 Detroit Pistons, and then you can kind of throw some sprinkler teams out there like the 98 Bulls, and so on and so forth. But the 2020 Lakers, no. We all know LeBron James' tactics. He's trying to be the GOAT. He's going to plant seeds. It is what it is. You guys should know this by now. I don't have to explain more into it. But that's what I got as of right now. Let's see what happens in 2021. Maybe the Lakers go against the big 3 Brooklyn Nets, and that could be one for the ages. And maybe the Lakers face off the Clippers in this year's playoffs and star-studded Western Conference. Who knows? We'll see. We'll cover it more.